Elias, I have news. Hold on. His voice was warm, but not for me. I heard it shift, soften, turn into something I hadn't heard directed at me in at least 2 years. Lily, stop crying. I'm coming to get you. The words landed in my chest like ice water. Lily, of course, his dead mentor's daughter. The one who needed him for everything, late-night anxiety attacks, med school applications, medical appointments she couldn't possibly attend alone, parking tickets he'd pay without telling me. The one who'd been living in our guest room for the past 6 weeks because her apartment had mold issues that no one else could verify. Elias. I tried again, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. I'm at the clinic. I have. Lily's having a panic attack. She can't breathe. I need to. I'm pregnant. Silence. I could hear him processing, could almost see the calculation happening behind his eyes. The pause was too long, beat too measured. When he spoke again, his voice had gone flat in that way I'd come to dread. We'll talk about it when I get home. We'll talk about it. Yes, later. He didn't say congratulations. He didn't say he was happy. He said later, which is code for not now, not ever. Please don't make me deal with this. Okay. I heard myself say it, heard the compliance in my own voice, and hated myself for it. Okay, go get Lily. I'll be home by 10. He wasn't. I sat in our living room until midnight, the ultrasound photo on the coffee table, like some kind of offering to a god who wasn't listening, the little bean-shaped blur, the flicker of a heartbeat. My body had done something miraculous, and I couldn't even tell the one person who was supposed to care. At 12:47 a.m., I finally went to bed, alone. At 2:15 a.m., I heard the front door open. Soft footsteps, whispering, the guest room door clicked shut. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, hand on my stomach, feeling the almost imperceptible flutter of something new, something that was mine, something that had never done anything wrong except choose the wrong moment to exist. The next morning, Lily was at our breakfast table like she lived there. She wore one of my silk robes, the emerald one I bought for our anniversary dinner, and she was crying softly into a mug of tea while Elias hovered over her like she was made of glass. I'm so sorry, she kept saying, dabbing at her eyes. I didn't mean to ruin your night. The memories, they hit me so hard and I couldn't. You don't have to apologize. Elias's voice was so gentle it made my teeth ache. You know you can call me anytime. Lily was 27, but she had perfected the art of looking 17, the wide eyes, the trembling hands, the way her voice cracked on certain syllables. I'd seen it 100 times, and every time, Elias rushed toward it like a rescue dog responding to a whistle. I walked into the kitchen, and the energy shifted. Lily's tears dried up instantly, not because she was faking, necessarily, but because she was professional. She knew exactly when to stop and when to start. Chloe, Elias looked at me like I was an interruption. We need to talk. Okay. Lily, can you give us a minute? Of course. She stood, clutching the robe closed with one hand, dabbing at her eyes with the other. Chloe, I'm so sorry about last night. I didn't mean to. Lily, I smiled the smile I'd practiced in the mirror for years. The one that said I'm fine. Everything's fine. You're being ridiculous. Don't worry about it. She glided out of the room, taking my robe with her. I'd never get it back. I knew that. Elias waited until he heard the guest room door close. Then he said, Is it true? You're really pregnant. 6 weeks. They did an ultrasound. I pulled the photo from my pocket and set it on the counter between us. There it is. He looked at it, looked at me. I searched his face for something, joy, maybe, concern, any emotion that suggested this mattered to him. He trailed off. Congratulations, I offered. Chloe, we need to be realistic. Realistic. This isn't good timing. You know that. Timing. I heard the word come out of my mouth and felt something shift inside me, a tiny crack in the foundation I'd built around myself. Elias, I'm 34 and we've been together for 4 years. We're married. When exactly would be good timing? Lily's going through a difficult period. Lily is always going through a difficult period. Don't do that. His jaw tightened. Don't minimize what she's dealing with. Her father was like a second father to me. I owe it to him. You don't owe him your marriage. You don't owe him. I stopped, breathed. You know what? I'm not going to do this. Do what? Fight with you about the woman who's been living in our guest room for 6 weeks, who calls you at all hours of the night, who shows up at our house in my robe, and who you. She doesn't have anyone else. And I have you? Do I have you, Elias? He didn't answer. That was the answer. I went to work that day, because what else was I supposed to do? Sit in the apartment and watch Lily cry into my mugs and wear my clothes and take my husband's attention like it was her God-given right? No, I was better than that. At least I told myself I was. My job wasn't glamorous. I worked in operations at a mid-sized logistics company, managing supply chains and vendor relationships and the 1,000 small emergencies that kept the business running. It wasn't what I planned. I planned to be a writer once, but then I'd met Elias and he needed me to be stable, and I'd learned how to be stable like I'd learned how to be everything he needed. But sitting at my desk that day, staring at spreadsheets I couldn't focus on, I started to think about a conversation I'd had with my father 3 years ago. He'd wanted me to join the family business, and I'd said no, because Elias had just been offered a position at a prestigious practice, and he'd wanted me to be flexible. I'd been flexible for years. I'd twisted myself into whatever shape he needed, and somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten I had bones. That's when it started. Not with a bang, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a spreadsheet. I opened my personal accounts, the ones Elias didn't manage, the ones I'd kept from before we combined everything. I looked at the numbers. They weren't huge, but they were mine. Then I opened the joint accounts. Then I started crying in the bathroom stall at work, because I just realized that Elias had been paying for Lily's apartment for the past 8 months, 0.8 months of rent. 8 months of utilities, 0.8 months of just helping out that I'd never been told about. 8 months. I called my friend Sarah. She answered on the first ring. Chloe, what's wrong? I'm pregnant, I said, and I think my husband is having an affair. Affair? With who? The girl from his practice. Lily, the dead mentor's daughter, the one who's living with us. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, okay, you need to call your father. Why would I call my father? Because your father is a lawyer who doesn't like your husband, and you are literally sitting on a gold mine of family money that you've been too nice to use. You're not powerless here, Chloe. You just forgot you had power. I didn't call my father. Not then. But I did start making a list. A list of everything I'd stopped doing, everything I'd stopped asking, everything I'd given away that wasn't mine to give. I stopped asking Elias for help with dinner, and I stopped telling him when I had doctor's appointments that I stopped sending him photos of things I was considering buying. I stopped asking for his opinion on anything, my clothes, my hair, my plans for the weekend, the color of the curtains I wanted for the nursery. I stopped making myself small. It took him 3 days to notice. Chloe, can I talk to you? He said it on a Thursday night. I was in the kitchen, heating up soup that I'd made for myself. It was the first time in 4 years I'd made dinner and not asked him what he wanted. What's going on? You seem distant. He said it like he was diagnosing a patient. Clinical. Detached. You're not talking to me anymore. I'm talking to you now. Before. You used to tell me things. You used to ask my opinion. You haven't asked me anything in days. I turned around, looked at him. He was handsome. He was always handsome. The kind of handsome that made people forgive him before he even asked. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, steady eyes that had once made me feel like the only person in the world. You've been busy, I said. I've been worried about you. You're pregnant and you're not eating enough and you're not sleeping well. I'm sleeping fine. You're lying. Elias. I set down the spoon. I'm not lying. I'm just not telling you everything. There's a difference. He looked like I'd slapped him. What's going on with you? Nothing's going on with me. I'm finally figuring out what I want. And what's that? I turned back to the stove, picked up the spoon. I don't know yet, but I'm not going to ask you to help me find it. I felt his confusion radiating off him like heat. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was just disoriented. For 4 years, he'd known exactly where I was, exactly what I was thinking, exactly what I needed from him, that I'd been an open book, and he'd taken that for granted. Now I closed the book, and he couldn't read the cover. He walked away without another word. I heard him go into the bedroom and close the door. I finished my soup. Then I went to the guest room and asked Lily to move. She cried, obviously. Chloe, I don't have anywhere else to go. My apartment's still not ready. And Elias said, Elias isn't your landlord. He's not your father. He's my husband, and this is my apartment, and I'm pregnant, and I can't have someone in my home who's going to cause this much stress. I didn't mean to cause stress. You're here. You're wearing my clothes. You're sleeping in my guest room. You call my husband at all hours. What exactly did you think would happen? Lily's eyes changed. For a split second, the vulnerability vanished. Beneath it was something sharper. Something that knew exactly what she was doing. Then she started crying again. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I don't have anyone else. Elias is the only person who understands what I'm going through. Lily, I kept my voice calm, even though my hands were shaking. I need you to leave by Friday. You can take the robe. She looked at me like I'd just stabbed her. Then she picked up her phone and called Elias. He came home 20 minutes later, and we had the fight I'd been trying to avoid. Chloe, what the hell do you think you're doing? I'm setting a boundary. She's been through so much. She's a grown woman who's been through normal, difficult things that millions of other people have also been through, and she's using you as a surrogate husband because it's easier than dealing with her own life. She's not. You're not her husband. You're mine. Elias stared at me. I could see the fight draining out of him, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Confusion, maybe. Or maybe it was guilt. I couldn't tell anymore. She's leaving Friday, I said. That's not negotiable. She's going to be homeless. She's going to be an adult. She'll figure it out. Just like I'm figuring out how to be a single mother. You're not a single mother. I'm here. Are you? He didn't answer that. Lily left on Friday. She took the robe. She took a lot of other things too. Some of my skincare products, a yoga mat I'd never used, a decorative vase I'd gotten from my grandmother. I let it all go. Things were things, that MY piece was something else entirely. But Elias didn't let it go. He started spending even more time at the office. And when I asked him why, he said he had cases to prepare, meetings to attend, patients to see. I knew that was a lie. What I didn't know was how deep the lie went. I found out 3 weeks later. I've been having trouble sleeping, pregnancy insomnia. The doctor called it. I woke up at 3 in the morning, and Elias wasn't in bed. I padded into the living room, thinking I'd find him on the couch. Instead, I found him on the balcony. He was on the phone. His voice was so soft I could barely hear it, but I heard enough. Lily, I know it's not fair, but she's pregnant, and I can't just... Pause. I love you too. You know I do, but this is complicated. Pause. She's not like you. She's not my choice. She's just the person I ended up with. I stood in the doorway, frozen. My heart was hammering so loudly, I was sure he could hear it. But he didn't turn around. He just kept talking, kept promising her things he'd never once promised me. I went back to bed. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, until I heard him come back inside. He didn't check on me. He just got into bed and went to sleep. The next morning, I called my father. Chloe, it's 7 in the morning. You never call me this early. Dad, I need your help. What's wrong? Is it the baby? The baby's fine. I swallowed. It's Elias. I told him everything. The phone calls, the lies, the money he'd been spending on Lily, the words I'd overheard on the balcony. By the time I finished, my father's voice had gone from confused to furious. I'm going to kill him. Please don't. That's not the kind of help I'm asking for. Then what are you asking for? Money, I said. I want to take my inheritance out of our joint accounts and put it somewhere he can't touch it. Did I want to buy an apartment in New York? Did I want to move there? And I want to do it without him knowing until it's done. You want to leave him? I want to protect myself and my child. My father was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I've never been prouder of you. I'll send the paperwork by noon. Where do you want the apartment? Manhattan. Somewhere with good schools. I'll make some calls. The call ended, and I sat there, phone in hand, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. I felt like I had a future. Over the next few weeks, I got very good at keeping secrets. I met with a divorce attorney that I arranged to have my name removed from our joint accounts. I bought an apartment in New York and furnished it without ever stepping foot inside. My father handled all of it, down to the curtains. I kept going to work. I kept smiling at Elias. I let him think everything was fine, even while I was watching him more closely than I ever had before. And I watched. I watched him text Lily constantly, always with a smile on his face, and I watched him work late and come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine. I watched him, and I noticed that every time I needed him, every time I felt sick or tired or scared about the baby, he was always just slightly out of reach. I made a decision. I wasn't going to wait for him to choose me. I was going to choose myself. The surgery came sooner than expected at preeclampsia. The doctor said it was dangerous, that I needed to deliver early, that the baby and I both needed immediate intervention, that I didn't call Elias. I didn't call anyone. I called an ambulance. I took myself to the hospital. I filled out the forms and signed the consent paperwork and lay in the hospital bed, waiting for the doctors to take my child out of me. And then Sarah showed up because of course she did. She was the one who'd figured out where I'd gone. She was the one who sat beside me, holding my hand, telling me everything was going to be fine. Did you tell him? She asked. No. He's going to be furious. Let him be. The surgery went perfectly. My daughter was born at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. She was small, with a full head of dark hair and a cry so powerful it made the nurses laugh. The moment they put her on my chest, I forgot everything else. Did I forgot Elias? Did I forgot the years of waiting and hoping and being what someone else needed me to be? All I could see was this tiny, perfect person who was entirely mine. I named her Eliza, not after anyone, just because the name had always made me smile. Sarah stayed with me for hours, holding Eliza while I slept, taking photos, making sure I had everything I needed. You're not going to believe this, she said, around 8 that night, but your husband is here. I opened my eyes. What? He's in the waiting room. He's been here for 2 hours. They wouldn't let him in because he's not on the list. I'm not ready to see him. I figured. So, I didn't tell him you were awake. Sarah. I started crying, hormones probably, or exhaustion, or both. I don't know what I'd do without you. You'd be fine, she said, but you don't have to find out. I saw Elias 3 days later when I was released from the hospital. He was waiting in the parking lot, looking pale and exhausted and furious. You didn't tell me, he said. You had a baby and you didn't tell me. I didn't want you to come. She's my daughter too. She's my daughter. You weren't there when she was conceived. You weren't there when I was pregnant. You weren't there when I was in labor. You weren't there for any of it. She's not yours, Elias. She's mine. He stared at me like I was a stranger. I know about the money, I said. The accounts. The rent you've been paying for Lily. The phone calls. The late nights. I know you told her you loved her. I heard you. Chloe, I can explain. I don't need you to explain. I'm done asking you for things. I'm done needing you. The baby and I are going to New York. You're leaving? The apartment's already bought. The movers are coming tomorrow. I don't expect anything from you. And I don't want anything from you. We'll figure out custody. We'll figure out visitation. But you and I are done. He reached for me, reached for the baby, and I stepped back. Don't, I said. Don't touch her. You don't get to be a father now. You made your choices. You chose Lily. You chose her every single day. Live with it. I walked to my car. I didn't look back. Hashtag chapter 2, the art of not asking. New York smelled like garbage and possibility, and I loved every single breath of it. The apartment my father had bought was on the Upper East Side, a 2-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over a park I couldn't yet name. The movers had come and gone. The boxes were still half unpacked. But Eliza was sleeping in her bassinet, and I was sitting on the floor of my new living room, eating takeout Chinese food straight from the container, and I hadn't thought about Elias in almost 4 hours. That was a record. My phone buzzed. Sarah's name lit up the screen. Tell me you're not eating alone in your new apartment while your baby sleeps like an angel. I'm eating alone in my new apartment while my baby sleeps like an angel. Chloe, you need to leave the house. You need to meet people. You need to. Sarah, I just had a baby. I'm allowed to be a hermit. You're allowed to be a hermit for exactly 1 more week. After that, I'm flying out and dragging you to a bar. You don't even know where I live. I know your address. Your father sent it to me. He's worried about you, by the way. I sighed, and my father had been calling twice a day, checking on me, asking if I needed money, if I needed a nanny, if I needed him to fly up and have a word with Elias, the last one I declined. I wasn't ready for that yet. I'm fine, I told Sarah. I'm actually surprisingly fine. You're not fine, you're in shock. The shock will wear off, and then you'll be angry, and then you'll be sad, and then you'll be angry again, and that's okay. That's normal. You just have to let it happen. I appreciate the therapy session, but I'm going to go unpack my kitchen now. Unpack your heart first. I hung up on her, but I smiled. The first week in New York was a blur of sleepless nights and formula bottles and the terrifying realization that I was entirely, completely, utterly alone with a newborn. But I managed. I managed because I had no other choice. I managed because Eliza was so small and so perfect and so dependent on me that I couldn't afford to fall apart. I managed because, somewhere deep inside me, I'd been preparing for this for years. The second week, I hired a nanny, not because I couldn't handle Eliza, but because I needed to go back to work. My father had offered to let me join the family business remotely. He had a New York office, and they'd been begging for someone with my operations background. I started the job on a Monday. It was admin work, mostly, but it gave me structure. It gave me a reason to shower and put on real clothes and talk to other adults. That's where I met Adrian. He was in the office next to mine, senior analyst, mid-30s, quiet in a way that made me immediately suspicious. I had spent 4 years with Elias, and I learned that quiet men often have the loudest secrets. But Adrian's quiet wasn't the same. His quiet was peaceful, like he'd already figured out all the things I was still trying to learn. He noticed me on my second day that I was trying to carry a box of files and a cup of coffee and my phone all at once, and I dropped the phone twice. He appeared out of nowhere, picked up my phone, and handed it back without a word. "Thanks," I said. "Sure." He gestured to the box. "You want help with that?" "I've got it." "You clearly don't, but okay." He walked away, and I watched him go, and I realized I'd just met the first person in years who'd offered help without needing me to explain why I needed it. It was disorienting. The second time I saw him, he was in the break room making coffee. I was there too, trying to figure out the ridiculous espresso machine. "You have to hold the handle down for 3 seconds, then release," he said. "It's not intuitive." "Nothing in this building is intuitive." He smiled. It was a nice smile. Easy. Uncomplicated. First week. Second. You're old guard then." I laughed. Genuinely laughed for the first time in months. "I'm Chloe, by the way." "Adrian." We shook hands. His grip was firm, but brief. "You're the one who came from Chicago, right? I heard someone in operations was transferring in." "Something like that." "I'm from Chicago originally. Well, suburbs. Oak Park." "That's not Chicago." "Close enough. You miss it?" I thought about it. Did I miss Chicago? Did I miss the apartment where I'd waited for Elias to come home? Did I miss the guest room where Lily had slept in my clothes? Did I miss the hospital where I'd given birth alone? "No," I said. "I don't miss it at all." Adrian didn't push. That was the thing. He didn't ask why I'd left, or where the baby's father was, or if I was okay. He just existed. He made coffee. He held the door. He remembered that I liked oat milk in my latte. I noticed it slowly. Small things. The way he'd offer to walk me to the subway after work, even though he lived in the opposite direction. The way he'd leave a protein bar on my desk when he noticed I'd skipped lunch. The way he'd text me articles about newborn sleep schedules, not because he was trying to fix me, but because he'd read them and thought of me. I'd been so used to needing to ask for everything. With Adrian, I didn't have to ask. He just saw. It made me uncomfortable. It also made me realize how little Elias had ever seen. 3 weeks into my new life, Elias showed up in my office. I was in a meeting when the front desk called. "There's a man here to see you. He says he's your husband." My blood went cold. "Tell him I'm not available." I did. He said he'd wait. I finished the meeting. It took 40 minutes. When I walked out, Elias was sitting in the lobby, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Chloe," he stood up. "We need to talk." "Not here." "Then where? You haven't answered my calls. You haven't responded to my emails. I didn't even know where you were until your father told me." "Let's walk." We went outside. The street was crowded with lunchtime foot traffic. Elias looked out of place, too polished, too tense, too Chicago. "You look good," he said. "You've lost the baby weight." "I had a baby. That's what happens." "Chloe, I'm not going to make this easy for you, Elias. If you have something to say, say it. But I'm not going to hold your hand through this conversation." He ran a hand through his hair. I'd always loved that gesture. Now it made me feel nothing. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said. "About us. About the way I treated you. About Lily." "Go on." "I was wrong. I should have been there for you. I should have listened when you needed me. I let my guilt about her father get in the way, and I made you feel like you weren't enough, and I'm sorry." I waited. There was more coming. I could tell. "I want to try again," he said. "I want to be a father to Eliza. I want to be a husband to you. I want us to go to counseling, work through this, rebuild what we had." What we had. Our relationship. The good parts. I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. "Elias, what good parts are you talking about? The parts where I asked you for things and you ignored me. The parts where I needed you and you chose her. The parts where I had a baby and you weren't there." "I know I wasn't there. I know I failed you. But people make mistakes." "People don't make mistakes. People make choices. You chose Lily. Every single day, you chose her. You chose her when you paid her rent. You chose her when you let her live in our apartment. You chose her when you told her you loved her while I was pregnant. You chose her, Elias. You didn't make a mistake. You made a decision." He was silent. "I'm not going to give you another chance to disappoint me," I said. "I'm not going to let you near Eliza until you've proved, consistently over a long period of time, that you're capable of putting her needs ahead of your own. And I'm definitely not going to take you back. Chloe, please. I'm done asking you for things. I'm done begging. I'm done waiting. You wanted to be needed? Lily needs you. Go be with her. That's what you wanted." He reached for my arm. I pulled away. "Don't touch me," I said. "Don't ever touch me again." He left, but he didn't leave for good. A week later, I got a letter from his attorney. They were filing for joint custody. They were demanding regular visitation. They were arguing that I'd kidnapped Eliza by moving to New York without his consent. I read the letter, and something inside me broke. Not because I was afraid of losing Eliza. I knew the courts would side with me, but because it proved that Elias still didn't understand. He still thought this was a legal battle. He still thought he could win me back through threats. I called my father. "He's suing for custody." "He's what?" "I'm not going to lose, Dad. I know that. But I'm going to have to fight, and I'm going to have to prove that he's an unfit parent, and I..." "Chloe, stop. I'll handle this." "No, I need to handle this. I need to fight my own battles." There was a pause. Then my father said, "I'm proud of you, but you're not alone. You have resources. Use them." I did that. I hired the best family lawyer in New York that I gathered evidence. The phone records, the bank statements, the emails. I documented every time Elias had been absent. Every time he'd prioritized Lily over me and Eliza. I built a case so airtight that his attorney would have no choice but to settle. But I didn't just build a case. I did something else. I started investigating Lily. It started as a hunch, the kind of thing you can't prove, but you can feel. I'd always suspected her anxiety attacks were timed to coincide with my moments of need. I'd always wondered why she never seemed to get better, why her crises were always urgent, always escalating, always requiring Elias's immediate attention. I hired a private investigator. It was expensive, but I had the money and I needed to know the truth. The report came back 2 weeks later. Lily's father had left her a trust fund, not huge, but enough to live on. She didn't have a job. She hadn't had one in years. She'd been living off the trust, supplemented by whatever Elias gave her. But there was more. The investigator had pulled her medical records. Lily had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder 3 years ago. She'd been in therapy, but she'd stopped going. She'd been prescribed medication, but she'd stopped taking it. She wasn't the victim she pretended to be. She was someone who'd learned that crisis got her attention, and attention got her things, like rent money, like a husband who wasn't hers. I sat with the report for an hour, trying to process what it meant. It meant Lily wasn't going to stop. She had a pattern. She'd had it for years. She'd do anything to keep Elias focused on her, including manufacturing emergencies the moment he started to slip away. And Elias was so deep in his guilt about her father that he couldn't see it. Or maybe he did see it, and he didn't care. Maybe he liked being needed. Either way, it meant I'd made the right choice. Adrian noticed something was off the next day. I was at my desk, staring at the report, not seeing anything. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Fine." Liar. I looked up. He was leaning in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, expression neutral. "Sorry," I said. "I'm just dealing with some stuff." "Stuff with the baby's father?" I didn't answer. That was answer enough. He nodded. "If you ever want to talk about it, I'm around. If you don't, I'm also around. Just so you know." "Thanks. One more thing." He walked over and set the coffee cup on my desk. "I made this for you. Oat milk, 1 sugar. You like it black, but I thought you might need something sweet today." I stared at the cup. He remembered my exact order, even though I'd only told him once. "You didn't have to." "I know." He smiled. "That's the point." He walked away, and I sat there, holding the cup, realizing something I hadn't expected to realize. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was starting to want things again. I wanted a life that didn't revolve around Elias. I wanted a partner who saw me without needing me to explain. I wanted to feel like I wasn't asking for too much. And for the first time, I thought maybe I could have that. The second reversal came a week later. Elias's attorney called mine. They were willing to drop the custody fight if I agreed to certain terms. No relocation out of state, regular video calls, and a commitment to facilitate Elias's relationship with her father. My attorney said it was a reasonable offer. I said I'd think about it. But I knew what Elias was really doing. He wasn't trying to see Eliza. He was trying to keep me close. He was trying to make it harder for me to move on. I responded with a counteroffer. I'd agree to video calls, but I wouldn't agree to restrictions on my movement. If I wanted to move to Los Angeles next year, I was going to do it. Elias's attorney came back with a threat. They'd go to trial. I said fine. Let them try. But then something happened that changed everything. Lily had a breakdown. It wasn't the first time IT wouldn't be the last, but this time, she did it publicly. She posted on social media, saying she was being targeted by a jealous wife, that she'd been vilified and threatened, that she was scared for her safety. The post went viral. Suddenly, I was being painted as the villain again. The wealthy wife who'd driven a poor, fragile woman to the brink. The monster who'd stolen a child from her father. The bitch who couldn't let go. I was getting messages, emails, even calls from people I'd never met. Some were supportive. Most were cruel. I deleted social media. I changed my number. I tried to focus on Eliza. But I was angry. Not just angry, furious. Lily had taken the most painful parts of my life and weaponized them. She turned my betrayal into her performance. And Elias was letting her. I called my investigator. "I need more," I said. "I need something that proves she's been faking it. Something that goes beyond her medical records." "Already working on it," he said. "I found something interesting. She's been seeing a therapist in New York, a different one. I got a copy of her session notes." "How did you?" "That's not your concern, but you need to see this." He sent me the file. Lily had told her therapist the truth. She'd admitted, in session, that her anxiety attacks were sometimes exaggerated. She'd admitted that she used Elias to meet her needs. She'd admitted that she knew he was married, but she didn't care. The therapist had noted her lack of remorse. I had the evidence, the smoking gun. I could release it. I could destroy her. But I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted her out of my life. So, I did something unexpected. I called Elias. "Elias, we need to talk." "Chloe, you called me." "I know I'm going to make you an offer. Drop the custody case. Admit, in writing, that you were having an emotional affair with Lily. Agree to never contact me or Eliza, except through a parenting app. And I won't release the evidence I have about Lily's history." "What evidence?" "She's been lying to you. Lying to her therapist. Lying to everyone. I can prove she's been manipulating you for years. I can prove she doesn't actually need you. She just likes having you." "You're threatening me." "I'm giving you a choice. You can walk away from me, clean and quiet. Or you can fight, and I'll show everyone what Lily really is." There was a long pause. "If I agree," he said finally, "will I ever see Eliza?" "Through the app. Video calls. I'll send photos. That's it. That's all you get." "That's not enough. It's more than you deserve." He was silent again. I could hear him breathing, could almost feel him weighing his options. Then he said, "I need to talk to Lily." "Talk to her. But I need your answer by tomorrow." "Chloe, one day, Elias. That's all you get." I hung up. The next morning, I got an email from his attorney. They'd agreed to all my terms. The custody case was dropped. Elias would admit to the affair. He'd used the parenting app. He'd never contact me directly again. I read the email 3 times, waiting for the relief to hit me. It didn't. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of winning. Tired of being the person who had to carry all the evidence, all the anger, all the weight of someone else's selfishness. I sat on my floor, holding Eliza, and I cried. Not because I was sad, because I was finally, truly, utterly done. Adrian showed up at my apartment that night. How did you know I needed company? I asked. I didn't. I just had a feeling. He held up a bag of takeout. I brought Thai, and ice cream, and a movie I'm probably going to fall asleep watching. You don't have to do this. I know. He walked past me into the kitchen. Where are your plates? I didn't know what to say. For 4 years, I'd been the one who brought things, who offered help, who showed up. I'd never expected anyone to do the same for me. Adrian found the plates himself. He set out the food. He asked about Eliza. He didn't ask about Elias. And somewhere between the pad thai and the dessert, I realized something. I'd stopped asking. Not just Elias, everyone. I'd stopped needing anything from anyone. I'd built a wall so high that no one could see over it. But Adrian had seen anyway, not because I'd asked, not because I'd cried, just because he was looking. It's okay, he said when I started crying again. I've got it. You don't even know what I'm upset about. I don't need to know. I just need to be here. I didn't believe him. I thought it was a line. Something men said to get what they wanted. But he didn't ask for anything. He just sat there, eating his dinner, scrolling through his phone, letting me exist in whatever state I needed to exist in. At 11, he left. He'd walked 12 minutes from the subway to my apartment, and he'd walked 12 minutes back, and he'd never once asked me for a thing. You're going to be okay, he said at the door. You know that, right? I don't know anything. That's okay, too. He smiled. You'll figure it out. He left. I closed the door, and for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt since before I met Elias. I felt hope. Hashtag Chapter 3. The mask falls. 2 months passed in a rhythm I was starting to love. Wake up before Eliza, shower, make coffee, feed the baby, head to work. The days blurred together in the best possible way, not because nothing was happening, but because I was happening. I was building something, a life, a routine, a version of myself that didn't need anyone's permission to exist. Adrian had become a fixture, not a boyfriend. I wasn't ready for that, and he never pushed, just a presence. A reliable, steady, uncomplicated presence that made my days feel lighter. He walked me to the subway every night. He brought me lunch when I forgot to eat. He sent me stupid memes about parenthood that made me snort laugh in meetings. He never asked about Elias. He never asked about the divorce. He just was. It scared me how much I wanted to trust him. But I'd learned my lesson. Trust wasn't something you gave freely. Trust was something you earned slowly over time through actions that matched words. And Adrian's actions so far had been flawless. The video call with Elias had become a weekly ritual. Every Sunday at 10 a.m., I'd prop my phone up on the table, put Eliza in her bouncer, and let her see her father. IT was mostly me talking to him while Eliza drooled and batted at the screen. But he seemed, in fact, to be trying. Her hair is getting lighter, he said one Sunday. She's starting to look like you. She looks like herself. You know what I mean? I didn't engage. I'd learned that engagement led to hope, and hope led to disappointment. I kept the call short, polite, professional. But I noticed things. He looked thinner. His eyes had dark circles. He'd stopped wearing his wedding ring, but the tan line was still there, pale and obvious. How's work? I asked because it was easier than asking the real questions. Complicated. The practice has been. I've been restructuring some things. Lily's okay? He flinched. She's fine. She's been spending more time at her own place. That was new. Before, Lily had been a permanent fixture. Now she was spending more time at her own place? I filed that information away. It didn't mean anything. Or it meant everything. I couldn't tell anymore. 3 days later, everything changed. I was in a meeting when Sarah called. Twice. I sent it to voicemail. She called again. 3rd time, I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. Chloe, have you seen the news? No. What news? Lily posted something. It's going viral. You need to see it. I opened Instagram on my phone. Lily's profile was public. Her most recent post was a photo of her holding a sonogram, a very early sonogram, the kind you get at 6 weeks. The caption read, asterisk, some people tried to destroy me, but I'm still standing, and now I have something to protect, asterisk. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the comments. They were already flooded with sympathy. People were congratulating her. People were asking who the father was. People were attacking me, assuming I was the villain who'd tried to destroy her. I called Elias. Chloe, what's wrong? Lily's pregnant. Silence. Elias. I asked you a question. I didn't know. Didn't know? Or didn't want to tell me. I'm serious. She never told me. She and I, he stopped. We haven't been close. Not lately. Elias. My voice was dangerously calm. Is it yours? I don't know. I don't think so. But I can't be sure. We haven't, he stopped again. We haven't been intimate in months. Since before you left, actually. I didn't know if I believed him, but I also didn't care. Whatever's going on between you two, I said, I don't want to be involved, but you need to handle this, because if she's going to use this to attack me, I'm going to defend myself. And that might not be pretty for either of you. Chloe, please. I don't want to hear it. Handle your mess. I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Lily's sonogram. Was it real? Was she actually pregnant? Or was it another manipulation? I thought about the investigator's report, her history, the way she'd manufactured crises to keep Elias close. Pregnancy was the ultimate crisis, the ultimate tie, the ultimate way to ensure she'd never be abandoned. But if she was pregnant, everything changed. Elias would be tethered to her forever. And I'd have to explain to Eliza someday that her father had a whole other family. I hated that I cared. I hated that my first instinct was still to try to figure out what Elias was thinking. I'd left him. I'd moved across the country. I'd built a new life. Why did his choices still have the power to hurt me? Because I loved him. Because I'd given him years of my life. Because I believed, once, that he was the answer to everything. And because some part of me, the part one tried not to listen to, still wondered what I'd done wrong. Adrian noticed I was off the next day. "Rough night?" he asked, as I stared blankly at my computer screen. Something like that. He didn't push. He never pushed. But he stayed in my doorway, leaning against the frame, and he didn't leave. "Adrian, you don't have to." "I know. I want to." I looked at him. For a moment, I thought about telling him everything. About Lily's pregnancy, about the video calls, about the fear that I'd never really be free of Elias. But I couldn't. It was too much. Too raw. Too soon. "I'm okay," I said. "I just need to get through today." He nodded. "I'll be here if you need me." He walked away, and I sat there, and I realized that his quiet presence was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. 3 days later, the story got worse. Lily posted again. This time, it was a video. She was crying, makeup smudged, clutching the sonogram to her chest. "I've been getting so many messages," she said, voice trembling. "I didn't want to do this publicly, but I can't stay silent anymore. The woman who tried to destroy me, she's threatened me. She's told me she'll make sure I lose everything. She said she'll use my past against me." She paused, wiping her eyes. "I'm not going to let her win. I'm going to fight for my baby. I'm going to fight for my relationship. And I'm going to tell the truth, even if no one believes me." The comments exploded. People were furious. They were calling for me to be exposed. They were tweeting my name, my company's name, my father's name. I got emails from journalists, messages from strangers, a call from HR at work, asking if I was aware of the situation. I'd become the villain in a story I'd never wanted to be part of. I didn't want to fight, but I realized that afternoon that I had no choice. Lily wasn't going to stop. She was going to escalate until someone stopped her, and the only person who could stop her was me. I called my lawyer. "I need to make a public statement. I need to release the evidence. All of it." "Chloe, are you sure?"